All right, what's up, guys? It is Thursday, April 2nd. All right, and we are going to get into 9.4 today. You guys are basically, you kind of wrapped up 9.3 yesterday. You did really good with completing the square. All right, and I kind of told you guys the day before that we're not going to really worry about solving using completing the square, like solving quadratic functions or equations using completing the square, because what I'm going to show you today is probably the best way and the surefire way to solve any quadratic equation. All right, no matter kind of what numbers we have in that equation, all right, or what form it's kind of in. All right, so we start to look at 9.4 here. All right, we start to look at 9.4 here, and it says, this is on page 478, by the way, in your textbook. Another way to solve quadratic equations is to use the quadratic formula. Okay, now it's going to be really important that we write this down. Okay, in order to use it and refer to it. So right now in your notebooks, let's make sure we are writing down what the quadratic formula is, along with our learning target, which our learning target is going to be, I can solve quadratic equations using the quadratic formula. Okay, so let's write down that learning target, and then let's make sure we write down this formula. All right, now this formula is, it's a little complicated. Okay, this formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c. And then we're going to divide all of that by 2 times a. All right. Now look at what form these equations are going to be in. All right. Look at this form. Okay. Every quadratic equation needs to be put in this form. If it's not already in this form, we need to put it in this form in order to use this formula. All right. So it's kind of something we've looked at before, right? If something's in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c, all right, we're going to set it equal to 0. And then we can use this formula to solve our equation, okay? Now let's take a look at what it says down here too. It says where a is not equal to 0, okay, so this number in front of x squared is not 0, and where b squared minus 4ac, which is the part that's underneath the square root symbol, is greater than or equal to 0, okay? If and only if these numbers, this math underneath the square root symbol, comes out to be a number that's greater than or equal to 0, can we solve this equation? Remember, if this number is negative after we do the math under here, we can't take the square root of a negative number, so there'd be no solution, okay? But again, this is called the quadratic formula. Make sure we have this written down to refer to. And as you can see, I'm including my webcam because it's a little bit complicated, and I feel like I need to show you some of it on my whiteboard back here. All right, so let's get into example 1 quick. And we'll hope my cat doesn't get involved too much. Hi. All right, so example 1, here we go. First thing I want to look at is my equation in the correct form? Okay, that is the first thing I want to look at. So is it in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0? Yeah. So what I want to do is I want to identify each of these variables. Okay, my 2 here is going to be a. My negative 5 here is going to be b. And my 3 here is going to be c. All right. So I'm essentially, guys, I'm going to use that formula and I'm going to plug these numbers in appropriately in for those variables, okay? And now there's a specific way that we have to do the math, okay? It's kind of like order of operations with the quadratic formula. All right, so let's look. Here is the quadratic formula on my screen, okay? Now, they are showing you that they substituted the numbers in, all right? So here we go. Remember, negative 5 is b, right? Now the formula says negative b right away. So what we should be noticing is there's a double negative there, okay? Plus and minus the square root of Now again, it's b squared, so negative 5 squared, and then minus 4 times a, and a is 2, times c, and 3 is c. Okay, and then we're going to divide all that. After we do everything on top, we're going to divide all that by 2 times 2, which is going to be 4. Okay, so let's look at what they did. All right, they simplified everything underneath the square root symbol first. This is going to be the same step every time, guys. We have to do everything underneath the square root symbol first. All right, so under here, we're going to follow order of operations. All right, when you do that math, it comes out to be 1. All right, think about it. Negative 5 squared is 25. Okay, and then 4 times 2 is 8, times 3 is 24. So 25 minus 24, that's going to give us our 1 here. Okay, now the next step is we're going to take the square root of 1 and see how they have the plus and minus here for us. That's just to remind us that there's 2 square roots of every number. All right, so we're going to take the square root of 1 right now. Okay, and that's going to just give us 1. Very simple. All right, so now what we should be noticing is we have 5 plus and minus 1 divided by 4. Okay, what I want us to picture is this. I want us to pretend, because this is how we have to do this in order correctly, I want to picture this top part as if it's in parentheses. Okay, to remind us we have to do this addition and subtraction before we divide. All right, so like I said before, everything on top has to be done first. Once we do everything on top, and we do it in the right order, we can divide by that bottom number. Okay, so here's what I'm really looking at. I'm really doing 5 plus 1 divided by 4, and then 5 minus 1 divided by 4. Remember, there's only 2 answers, right? So 5 plus 1 divided by 4, I'm just going to kind of get rid of this stuff here. Remember, it's kind of like it's in parentheses on top. Got to do that first. All right, but here we go. 5 plus 1 divided by 4, that gives me 6 divided by 4, which is really 3 over 2, or 1.5 is, of course, okay. And then 5 minus 1 divided by 4, that gives me 4 divided by 4, which is 1. Okay, so those are my answers. And they always say you can always go back and check it. All right, so if you plug these numbers into the original equation, they do form an equivalent equation. They make the equation true for both numbers. All right, so now here's why I have my whiteboard back here, because I want to show you one kind of myself. All right, so I'm going to write this out. I'm going to get you closer to the board here. All right, so 2x squared plus 7x plus 3 equals 0. All right, so is it in the right form? Yes, it is. Remember, my form is ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, so essentially 2 is a, 7 is b, 3 is c. All right, so my formula says x equals negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. This is all going to be divided by 2a. All right, so let's replace these variables with the correct numbers. Okay, so x equals negative b, so negative 7, right? So negative 7 plus or minus negative 7 squared minus 4 times 2 times 3. All right, this will all be divided by 2 times a is 2 again. Okay, so again, what I want you to practice doing is just starting by doing this. All right, replace all your variables and do it correctly. Okay, once we do that, I'm going to pause you here. All right, once we do that, plug everything in correctly. Now here's the deal, guys. I'm going to do everything under my square root symbol first, okay? That's going to give me x equals. Let's do this math together. Negative 7 squared is 49 minus 4 times 2 is 8 times 3, 24. All right, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take that and simplify it even further, okay? So 49 minus 24, what's that going to give me? I'm going to erase this right now and replace that with 25. I'm essentially taking the square root of 25, and this will all be divided by 2 times 2, which is 4, okay? Now, x equals, it's going to be negative 7. I'm going to write this like this as two separate. If I take the square root of 25, I get plus 5 divided by 4, and negative 7 minus 5 divided by 4. Okay? So, let's separate these. Set negative 7 plus 5, that gives me negative 2. Negative 2 divided by 4, that's negative 0.5. So one of my answers is negative 0.5. The other, negative 7 minus 5, is negative 12. Negative 12 divided by 4 is negative 3. Okay? So my final answers are x equals negative 0.5, and you could say or, it doesn't really matter, negative 3. Okay? Most important thing, you should be able to see doing everything in the correct order. Okay? So the order is simply this. We do all the math underneath the square root symbol first. Okay? We take the square root of whatever number we get. We then add and subtract on the top. We have to picture this. Remember that this is like it's in parentheses. We got to do it first. And then we divide by the bottom number last. It's the last thing we do. Okay, we follow those steps. Shouldn't be too bad. All right. Okay. So let's take a look at maybe some on your own problems for you guys to give it a shot. Okay. So do me a favor. And at this time, we're just going to pause it. And I'll have you guys try these 3. And when you come back, answers will be up. And then we'll just right away get into your practice. Okay? So pause your video at this time. All right, so here's what we hopefully come out with. Okay, our answers would be x equals 1 and 5 for number 1. X equals negative 1 and 3/4 or 0.75 for number 2. And then x equals 1/2 or 2/3 for number 3. Or 0.5 or 0.6 repeating. Okay. So again, if you follow the steps that I kind of discussed today, you should be pretty successful. And remember, this is a really useful method, guys, because we can use it for, as you can see, any type of quadratic equation. Okay. So let me just run through this with you real quick. The second example is really just more of the same. Okay. It's just more of the same. So we have numbers that we're just going to plug into the quadratic formula. And again, what comes out basically is what they wanted to show you, I guess, is that there's actually only one answer for this problem, because when you do the math underneath the square root symbol, it comes out to be 0. All right. So when you take the square root of 0, there's only one square root of 0. Negative 20 plus or minus 0 won't change. Okay. So negative 20 divided by 8 would give us a solution of negative 5/2 or negative 2.5. So they're just showing you a different example of what happens if 0 comes out underneath the square root symbol. Technically, there's only one solution, okay? But again, it's the same exact concept. It's using the quadratic formula. It's just plugging the numbers in. It's kind of plug and chug, okay? If you follow the order that I discussed today, you should be pretty successful with this. At this time, you will go into big ideas and complete an assignment today. All right. And then tomorrow we'll probably just do some practice on IXL or I might show you another part to this lesson that we didn't discuss today. Okay, but again, at this time, complete your assignment and big ideas, and you are done for the day. Hopefully this made sense. As always, if not, ask questions in the discussion thread or email me at any time. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow.